The wind slammed against Evelyn Hayes so hard it shoved her sideways, nearly tearing her shawl from her shoulders. Grit stung her eyes, the desert's sandstorm roaring like 1,000 hooves pounding across the flats. She held her horse's reins tight, but the terrified animal twisted and pulled, refusing to go farther as the sky churned black above them. A faint glow flickered through the dust, yellow, warm, the shape of a lantern swaying in a window. A house. A chance. She forced her legs to move, pushing through the storm until she reached the porch steps, boots sliding and the grit piling against the wood. Her fist struck the door once, twice before it jerked open. A tall man filled the frame, broad shoulders darkened by the lantern at his back. His voice cut through the howl of the wind, low and steady. "Storm's too big to outrun," he said. "Get inside." Evelyn staggered in, clutching the wall as the door slammed behind her. The sudden silence wrapped around her like a blanket, deep, heavy, broken only by the creaking rafters and the low rumble of thunder outside. The rancher set the lantern on the table. His face was shadowed, jaw sharp beneath days of stubble, eyes steady and unreadable. "Sit," he told her, motioning to an old wooden bench by the hearth. "Just sit on it." Something in his tone, too calm, too deliberate, made her hesitate. The wind shrieked against the walls again, and she obeyed, lowering herself onto the bench. The wood groaned beneath her weight. Then something groaned back. Evelyn froze. Her hand tightened on the bench's edge. A subtle shift echoed beneath the floorboards. A muffled thud. The feeling of breath, alive, human, pressed faintly upward against the soles of her boots. Her heart hammered. The rancher didn't flinch. He just pulled off his gloves, tossed them onto the table, and checked the shutters one by one as wind clawed at them from outside. "That storm will tear the roof off if it gets any meaner," he murmured. Another thump, louder this time, rose from beneath the bench. Evelyn jerked her feet up instinctively. Her voice cracked. "There's something under me." He didn't turn right away. When he finally did, his expression was steady as a stone wall. "I know." Lightning flashed, white and violent through the gaps in the shutters. For a heartbeat, Evelyn saw the rancher's face fully, the scars etched across his temple, the old burns along his jawline, the hardness of a man who'd seen too many guns drawn too fast. The bench shifted again. Evelyn stood abruptly. "Who's down there?" The rancher stepped closer, boots thudding softly on the wood, voice dropping to a low murmur that carried more weight than the storm outside. "Don't be afraid," he said, reaching for the lantern. "He's hurt, and he's the reason you made it here alive." Thunder shook the house. Dust drifted from the rafters. Evelyn stared at the floorboards beneath the bench, now still but breathing. The rancher lifted the lantern, its light trembling across the walls. "Come," he said quietly. "You should see for yourself." The trapdoor groaned open, lantern light spilling into the narrow darkness below. Evelyn covered her mouth. A man lay on a thin blanket, chest rising in shallow, ragged breaths. Blood soaked his shirt, fresh and dark, and his badge lay half-hidden beneath his arm. U.S. Marshal, dented and scratched from a fight he'd barely survived. The marshal blinked up at them, voice a whisper scraped raw. "They coming?" Before Bram could answer, a gust slammed into the house, rattling every board. Evelyn felt the vibrations through her boots, the storm pressing hard against the walls like something alive. Bram lowered the lantern beside the wounded man and checked the bandages at his ribs. "They'll find the tracks," he muttered, "even in this wind." Evelyn knelt, feeling the marshal's heat even through the bandages. "Who did this?" The marshal swallowed, breaths hitching. "Rusted Spurs 5 riders shot me off my horse, chasing a wagon. Children in it." His hand trembled as he clutched Bram's sleeve. "They won't let me live." Thunder cracked overhead, shaking dust loose from the beams. Evelyn felt her stomach twist. She glanced at Bram, but his expression didn't change. He tightened the bandage with quick, practiced hands, not the work of a simple rancher. Above them, something clattered against the window. A branch? No, metal. A spur, torn loose by the wind, striking the glass. Evelyn's breath caught. Bram heard it too. He rose slowly, brushing his hands off, jaw tightening. They're closer than I thought. He reached for a rifle leaning against the wall. Old, but polished, well cared for. He checked the chamber, movements smooth, efficient. Evelyn stared. You're armed like you were expecting them. I expect trouble everywhere, Bram replied, voice flat. Some men attracted. Another clatter. Hoofbeats this time. Faint, swallowed by the storm, but unmistakable. The marshal grabbed Evelyn's wrist. He ain't just a rancher, he rasped. You know who he is, don't you? She shook her head. The marshal's voice thinned to a whisper. Bram called her the bull, the tracker who hauled the black knives out of Sandstone Canyon alone. His eyes flicked toward Bram. Retired after his family. Bram cut him off sharply. Save your breath. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Bram's face through the slatted floorboards, scarred, weathered, carved by old grief. Evelyn understood then why he moved the way he did, why he spoke with the calmness of a man already familiar with death. Hoofbeats circled the ranch now, slow, deliberate. A rider called out through the storm, voice stretching thin across the wind. Calder, we know you're in there. The marshal stiffened. Evelyn's pulse hammered in her ears. Bram blew out the lantern beside the trapdoor, leaving the wounded man in shadow. Stay with him, he said quietly. Evelyn swallowed hard. What are you going to do? Bram chambered around with a smooth metallic click. What I always do, he said, eyes fixed on the door. Fight what's coming. The first bullet shattered the side window before Evelyn could draw another breath. Glass rained across the floorboards, wind and sand pouring through the jagged opening. Bram didn't flinch. He pressed his back to the wall beside the door, rifle raised, eyes narrowed into the storm-darkened night. Hoofbeats thundered around the house, circling like wolves. Lanterns bobbed in the wind, casting wild shadows that leapt across the yard. A voice rose above the storm. Calder, hand over the marshal, and we'll let the woman walk free. Another bullet ripped into the wall inches from Evelyn's shoulder. She ducked instinctively, heart pounding against her ribs. Bram's voice cut sharp through the chaos. Stay low. Lightning flashed, just enough to reveal 5 silhouettes on horseback spread across the yard. The Rusted Spurs fired again, flames popping from their barrels, each blast loud enough to shake dust loose from the rafters. Bram slid to the shattered window, returned fire with a single precise shot. One lantern dropped, snuffed out instantly. A horse reared, its rider tumbling into the mud with a curse lost in the wind. Evelyn crawled along the wall, fingers brushing the trapdoor handle. The marshal below groaned softly. They'll breach, he whispered. Crowder, don't stop. Outside, a heavy boot slammed against the front door. Once, twice, each kick cracking the wood more deeply. Bram braced it with his shoulder, rifle angled one-handed. Crowder, he shouted through the boards. Come for him yourself. The answer came as a roar of gunfire. Splinters exploded around Bram's arm. Evelyn saw blood streak down his sleeve, but he didn't look down, not even once. Another lightning flash. Evelyn saw the ladder to the loft. She moved before she could question herself, scrambling up the rungs as bullets whined past her ears. The loft was dusty, low-ceilinged, filled with crates and old blankets. She spotted a rifle leaned against a beam, barrel long, stock worn smooth by years of use. Her hands shook as she lifted it. Below, the doorframe cracked. Bram shoved back with everything he had, jaw clenched, boots digging into the floorboards. A gun barrel poked through the splinter gap. Evelyn didn't think. She aimed through the loft railing and fired. The shot boomed through the house like thunder. The gun barrel vanished. A man outside screamed, cut short by the storm swallowing the sound. Bram glanced up, just once, something surprised and sharp flickering in his eyes. The doorframe buckled. Good shot, he growled. Again. She loaded another round with shaking fingers. Fired. The lantern she hit burst in a rain of sparks. Darkness swallowed half the yard. The remaining riders hesitated. Bram seized the moment, kicked the door open, and fired into the storm. Another rider dropped. Only one silhouette remained now, bigger, broader, unmoving. Crowder. Lightning lit him as he stepped off his horse, eyes locked on the house, long coat whipping in the wind. "You can't hide him forever, Calder," he bellowed. "Tonight, one of you dies." The storm raged. Evelyn's rifle emptied. Bram's breath came slow and steady. The showdown had begun. Crowder's silhouette moved through the storm, steady, unhurried, a shadow cut from the lightning itself. Bram stepped into the doorway, rifle raised, breath steady despite the blood darkening his sleeve. Wind whipped grit between them, stinging Evelyn's face as she leaned over the loft railing, trying to see through the swirling dust. Crowder fired first. The muzzle flash lit his scarred jaw as the bullet tore across the doorframe, splinters spraying Bram's cheek. Bram answered instantly, one sharp shot that forced Crowder behind a post near the corral. The storm swallowed their silhouettes again. Evelyn reloaded with trembling hands. The rifle felt heavier now, her heartbeat so loud she feared it might give her away. Below, the marshal gasped in pain, the trapdoor shuddering under each distant thunderclap. Crowder's voice sliced through the wind. "You had your chance to die quiet, Calder." A lantern rolled across the yard, wind pushed, its faint flame flickering over Bram's boots. Evelyn saw him glance at it, just once, no hesitation, before he stepped back into the house. "Keep Crowder's eyes on you," Bram called up to her. She didn't understand, until he crossed the room and grabbed something beneath the bench. His fingers pressed a wooden notch she hadn't noticed before. The floor beneath the doorway shifted. A trap. The very same bench she'd first sat on was part of a mechanism. A counterweight. A trigger. Crowder reappeared, firing again, bullets slicing into the walls. Evelyn fired back clumsily, her shot ricocheting off the water trough. It was enough. Crowder swung toward her, stepping exactly where Bram needed him to. Bram slammed his hand against the mechanism. The earth opened under Crowder's boots. A roar of cracking would drown even the storm's fury. Crowder dropped, arms flailing as the ground swallowed him into the hidden pit below the threshold. His gun struck the dirt with a dull thud. He cursed, the sound rising from the darkness like a trapped animal. Bram stood over the opening, rain slashing across his face. "Should have stayed off my land." Crowder lunged upward, desperate, fingers clawing the edge. Evelyn fired once more. The bullet struck just beside his hand, splintering the frame. Crowder lost his grip. His scream echoed as he slid back into the pit's shadows. Then, all at once, the storm began to calm. The wind softened. The thunder drifted east. Only the ragged breathing in the house remained. Evelyn climbed down from the loft, legs shaking. Bram closed the pit with a heavy thud of wood on wood, sealing the outlaw inside. He leaned against the wall, exhaustion finally breaking past the steel in his posture. "You did good," he murmured. She looked at him, at the blood, the scars, the man who'd held the line when no one else would. And she realized the truth the marshal had tried to tell her. Bram Calder hadn't stepped back into legend tonight. He'd simply answered when legend called him. Dawn bled slowly across the storm-cleared mesa. Light pushed into the battered ranch house, touching Evelyn's rifle, Bram's wounded arm, and the trapdoor beneath them where a marshal breathed easier than he had hours ago. Somewhere far off, thunder rumbled faintly, as if the desert were telling the story already.